Hey, what's going on, YouTube? It's the brain of the mainframe here, Nile Scala, with the man, the myth, the legend, my co-host for 105 fabulous episodes, Mr. Billy Tucci, and an amazing guest host, Action Figure Adventure Zone, Mr. Jay Bartlett. Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
It is an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the invite once again, my friends. Thank you.
Our pleasure, my friend, and we know. I mean, well, you are an authority, so and you're a fan, just like we are. But we're stoked for tonight, huh?
I know, it's a great way to start March, man. And with our Thursday spotlights, I mean, we couldn't ask for a better guest. I mean, this is going to be an amazing show. I'm pretty pumped about this. And I know Jay is, I know you are, I know Frank Amazing, one of our producers, is ready for this. We got Brian Blevins, our other producer, who's just ready to rock and roll. And the chat and the show, everyone's just starting to crawl right in. And I mean, I don't know, fellas, I think without a little further ado, let's bring them right in.
Bring them on in, Nile.
You know what, Jay, would you do the honors?
Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce the legend, the man, Mr. Larry Hama.
Larry, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show. This is fantastic. You know, growing up, your work has been, influential for me. I know for Jay, for a bunch of people, and it's awesome to have you here. And we appreciate you coming onto the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hama. And I had the pleasure of, while we were in Albuquerque, to have dinner with Larry 3 nights in a row.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Larry. You must have had some desperate times.
Well, in Albuquerque.
Yeah, we had a taste of Albuquerque, and we went to a hibachi place, which I learned wasn't Japanese.
Really?
From Larry. He's a wealth of information. I guess that's an American invention, right?
Pretty much. Yeah.
And then we had a delightful dinner with Marv Wolfman and his lovely wife. That was great.
At all you could eat Italian place.
Yeah. That's right.
What was the name of that joint?
Yeah.
There's a chain though. Was it?
Yeah, the Buca de Beppo.
Buca de Beppo, right?
Yeah, that's really the name of it. Buca de Beppo.
Buca de Beppo.
Sounds like you're making it up, like you're trying to speak Italian.
No, Buca de Beppo. It's we go there every in San Diego. We go there every Sunday night. Mm-hmm. That's our traditional Sunday night dinner. Nice, hearty Italian pasta dinner with some wine and of course all the meatballs and it was great. It really was.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Especially for a chain, it was really impressive. So
every dish was bigger than your head.
I know it was.
Well, that's where Marv was passing around meatballs, right, Billy? You're saying he's just like, "Hey, I'm Marv. Here's a meatball."
Yeah, with his hands.
Well, the meatballs were so big, there were only 3 of them on a plate.
Yeah, like the whole family style thing.
They were the size of cantaloupes or something.
I mean, they had to give you 3 pounds of pasta in a plate, right? It looked like the little rascals when they were kids and they would get their mush or their food that they would eat. That's what it looked like, a giant thing of pasta. Good times, though. Great times.
Good. Well, I'm glad you guys had fun. I mean, the convention scene this year, I mean, it's up in the air now, I guess, right?
Well, yeah. Who knows? They're canceling stuff left and right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think you're better off just play it safe.
Well, the thing is, but the problem is all here in the States is all the inaction.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've managed to somehow put a lid on the virus in China by sheer dint of going over the top.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a population that's really cooperative, because they're cowed.
Yeah.
And they've emptied the streets.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
And and here it's very laissez-faire, It's like, maybe we'll forget about testing these people as they get off the plane. We don't even have the means to test.
Yeah.
So, So, it's going to be worse here than it is in other places.
That's true. I mean, well, actually, true story. My, a friend of mine, he works in the city, and a buddy of his friend just came back. I forget where he came from, but they went out to lunch and this and that, and then he got a phone call from his friend saying, "Oh, so and so is in quarantine now for coronavirus." Wow. I'm like, well, that seems a little backwards. I mean, shouldn't you quarantine and then release to the public instead of let it release to the public and then quarantine? But I guess if you don't show the symptoms and then they find it, then they quarantine you.
Yeah, but then they had that guy yesterday who violated his quarantine and decided to go to some public event.
Yeah, you go to the mall or something, or
he just said, doesn't affect me. And if somebody did that in like North Korea, if somebody did that,
oh geez,
they take them to the soccer field and shoot them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's like you saw them dragging the people out of their apartments in China.
Yeah,
screaming. It's like, oh boy,
I know,
crazy.
Yeah,
they're trying to stop the spread. I guess any means necessary. I'm not sure.
So.
But I'll tell you, on a lighter note.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's start with our first question.
Okay.
So, Larry, what was it like coming up in the comic book business with the likes of Neil Adams, Frank Bruner, and Bernie Wrightson?
Well, that's 3 very different experiences. Well, I went to work at Neil Adams' studio in the early 70s, renting desk space there. He was renting desk space for $50 a month to anybody who wanted it. And so it was $50 a month. You got a desk and all the coffee you could drink.
Oh, that's a deal.
Pretty good deal, And the place was running like 24/7. Because a lot of the bulk that we did was storyboards and advertising. And I've never had a storyboard job that wasn't due the next day.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we'd be there you get a job in at 3 p.m. and you just be there all night. Try to hand it in at first thing in the morning. But that was really good training.
Yeah.
Because, you had to be able to draw anything, You had, like telephones, cars, whatever, furniture. And you had to do it fast. None of this dilly-dallying around, And at one point, there was something like 5 or 6 of us penciling storyboards as fast as we could. And Neil was sitting there with a pentel, inking them faster than we could pencil them.
Oh,
oh wow.
And he'd finish a whole stack and we'd be penciling away and he'd be done, and he'd get up and go get a cup of coffee and come back and look at us and go, you guys are a bunch of sissies. Can't even keep up with the old man. And, it like I said, it was really great training. And so some of the best guys in the world were working there.
Yeah.
I mean, Russ Heath had a desk there.
Wow.
Sergio Aragones had a desk space there for a while. Wally Wood was there for like a year, I think. Jack Abel had space there. Marshall Rogers, and the people that worked up in the front room for Neil, they were like Terry Austin and just this like a killer list, and it was also a hangout. People came and because it was free coffee.
Yeah.
And it was like 3 blocks from DC and like 6 blocks from Marvel,
Yeah.
So if you came in to town and were taking a job in to one of the companies, you could come and hang out at Continuity. So, it was like this really great crossroads. if you sat there long enough, you met every single person in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of cross-pollination going on.
Oh, I believe it. What kind of stuff were you guys working on? Was it more like advertising things and whatnot?
Mostly advertising, but we did our own comic book stuff there too. You know?
Oh, cool.
Plus, Neil organized this thing called the Krusty Bunkers, which was, you know, anybody who could like pick up a brush or a pen, and we'd get in a job, an inking job that was really late. Something that it had to be done over the weekend, you know, like 22 pages or something, or even a 50-page like Conan job.
Jeez.
And we get enough people together and do it over the weekend. You know, Neil would like do most of the heads, and everybody else would do everything else. Some guys were, you know, specialized. Oh, I can do, you know, one guy just did great bushes or something. You know? Somebody else could do like, you know, great, you know, urban backgrounds or something like that. And we just cranked it out. And
Was there ever someone there that said, "I don't do windows"?
Well, you know, it's strange. There's not that very many windows in comic book panels.
It's too much work. It's too much work.
That's a lot of work. Yeah.
Oh,
we got a Mark C here with a super chat. He just wanted to say, I wanted to thank Mr. Hama for many years of great reading during my childhood. G.I. Joe was my first monthly book. Also, despite only contributing a few issues, Frank Springer was my favorite collaborator he had. Well, thank you there, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Frank was a hell of a guy. You know, he was from a whole nother generation, you know, so he would always show up at the office in a suit.
Oh, wow. Wow.
In a suit and a tie. Well, maybe half a dozen guys that were like that. You know, they were really old school. You know, you went into the office, you were wearing a suit and tie.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ben
Owen, man business.
Like that too. Always wore a suit and tie.
Oh, wow. Oh, we got another one here from Matt V. I don't know. This may jump. I'm not sure when you worked with Brian Scherer. What's it been like to work with Brian Scherer?
Who's that a question for?
You.
That was for you.
Oh, who's Brian Scherer?
Yeah, I don't know.
Brian Scherer. He's worked on some Transformers and G.I. Joe stuff. So maybe, I don't know. Matt V. Maybe he thought you've worked with him. I'm not sure. Well, anyways, thanks for the super chat, Matt V. I don't have an answer for you.
Look, I've been doing this for 50 years. Oh, 53 years.
Wow.
So, you know, if I can't remember every single person I've worked with.
That's fair. That's fair.
That is true. Yeah, that is fair. Yeah. So when you started out, Larry, I mean, what did you enjoy? Well, actually, so you did penciling. You're doing that. You got into writing. Now, is there one you favor over the other?
Well, the thing is, when I was an editor at Marvel, they said that I was the only guy up there that had a rate for every single job. I had a lettering rate, a penciling rate, an inking rate, a coloring rate. You know, I came from an era when everybody was expected to be able to do everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first went to work for Wally Wood, the first thing he did was he taught me how to letter. He taught me the Gaspar Saladino lettering alphabet, and I was lettering Cannon and Sally Forth for him, which were strips that were running in the Overseas Weekly, which the GIs called the Oversex Weekly. It was a paper that was sold on military bases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was it? How did you take to lettering? I find it impossible. I tried. You know, I originally when I first self-published I wanted to hand letter it. You know, the whole romantic notion, and I was just awful.
Well, no, but you gotta. the thing is, you have to really learn it from somebody who does it. You can't sort of train yourself, because you have to Chevy the tools. You can't just use a pen point straight out of the box. You used to get these flip top C points, the speed balls, and then you'd have to like take a whetstone and grind them down into an angle, and then really practice on how to get a snappy stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what Woody said when he taught me to letter was like, if I can't teach you how to letter, I can't teach you anything else, because that's the basic.
Oh wow!
Because that's teaching you the control of the tool. That you don't. My tendency at first would be to let's see, grab something, to like go like this, right? Hold the tool towards you, right? That's wrong.
Really?
It's like you do this.
Wow.
And that's what gives you the snap.
Okay.
And if you pull your tool, right? And it was Neil that showed me how to ink a straight line with a brush and a ruler. And he said, there's no reason why you can't ink a perfectly straight line the entire width of the page with a brush and have it uniform. And I couldn't have figured out how to do that, myself.
Yeah.
The thing is, when you're left to your own devices, you try to figure out, how to do something, how to replicate something that you've seen. There was a famous illustrator from the turn of the century who didn't realize that engravings were engravings.
Oh, really?
I think you know who the guy is.
Is it Gibson?
He used to do ads for funeral companies and things like that. But he developed a style with using a pen and ink that imitated what he saw in engravings.
In the engravings.
Wow.
That's what he thought it was.
Charles, would that be Charles Dana Gibson, who did the Gibson Girl? Remember, he had that great pen, and it was all that. It looked like engravings the way he did. I wonder if it's him.
No, it wasn't Gibson. I'll think of his name. I'm having a senior moment, but it'll come to me. But yeah, it's all about understanding the tools, and it used to be that you could learn all this stuff directly from the fonts. Because of the nature of the comic book business, you had to produce so much stuff that the top guys all had assistants.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of top guys got to where they are by being somebody else's assistant in the first place. Wally Wood worked for Milton Caniff.
Yeah.
And he told that really famous story about, on his first week working for Milton Caniff, the big man says, look, I'm going to lunch. Draw the explosions in these two panels while I'm at lunch. And Wayne's like, oh man.
Yeah, oh my God.
I know how to do a Milton Caniff explosion. I've seen 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
So he sits down and he laboriously, pencils every detail of the explosion and then inks it with a brush, and he's like, he spends the entire lunch hour doing this one explosion. right? And the man comes back and he looks at it and says, that's crap.
Oh,
Oh, man.
And then he takes out a clean sheet of Strathmore, right? And he takes like a number 5 brush and he dips it in the ink and he goes like that. And he picks up the paper, goes, blows on it, picks up a single-edged razor blade and goes explosion.
And there's a great explosion. Now, how did you?
Like 5 seconds.
Oh my! How did you come about working for or being the assistant to Wollywood?
Well, that's a pretty convoluted story.
Oh, it is. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I went to the High School of Art and Design, in Manhattan, which was the alma mater of Neil Adams, Alex Toth, Dick Giordano, Frank Brunner, Ralph Reese, Michael Davis, Joe Jusko. If you go to their website, their list of comic book alumni is like over 100 names.
Wow.
Yeah. Alex Toth went there.
Oh, did he?
And so did Tony Bennett and Calvin Klein.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I know Tony Bennett. Yeah.
And it was, so I met Frank Brunner and Ralph Reese at Art and Design. They were in my year, and my first day at the school, I'm sitting in the cafeteria, and this tall black kid comes up to me, total stranger, and he says, "Hi, do you like comics?" I said, "No." And he didn't quit. Like a lot of people would just like walk away.
Yeah.
And he just like stood there and said, "Well, I really like comics, and like Jack Kirby, he's really great."
Yeah.
This is 1965.
Yeah.
And he's like so full of enthusiasm. His name was John Smith. And then he says, "I know a real cartoonist. You want to go visit him?" Right? I go, okay. So he hauls me over to this guy, Larry Ivy's house, who was a fan, who put out a fanzine called Larry Ivy's Monsters and Heroes. And he was also putting out Castle of Frankenstein for Calvin Beck.
Oh, cool.
But Larry did assistant work for all these guys. He knew Wally Wood, he knew Al Williamson, he knew, all. There used to be this sort of like a comic book ghetto on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, clustered in around near the Museum of Natural History. Mm-hmm. And they were all within walking distance of each other. So that's how I got to meet Wally Wood and Al Williamson and Roy Krenkel and all these guys.
Cool.
Through Wally Wood. And so I hooked up Ralph Reese with Woody, and Reese became Woody's assistant in the late 60s. And when I came home from the Army in like 71, I didn't have a job. I mean, I had when I got drafted, I had a job working at a studio doing drawing shoes for Sears Roebuck and Montgomery Ward and J.C. Penney catalogs. Mm-hmm. And under the law, they were required to give me my job back when I came home.
Right.
But I come home and I go, I'm never going to eat a lima bean or Spam for the rest of my life.
There you go, buddy. Yeah, there you go.
And I don't think I want to draw anymore.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
and Ralph says, "Hey, look, I'm getting some work, and you could pencil faster than I can pencil, and I can ink faster than you can ink. So let's put together a studio, and you pencil and I'll ink." So I thought, well, this should be okay for a year or two.
Yeah.
54 years later.
I know. 54 years later, I'm still wondering what the heck I want to be when I grow up. So,
that's incredible.
That's how I got started.
Nice. And which was the first comic book you worked on?
The first comic book?
Yeah.
I mean, mainstream comic.
First mainstream comic book.
Because I did undergrounds in the 60s.
Yeah.
I think it was the first actual comic book job I got was through Neil Adams. He stuck his foot in the door at DC for a lot of guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he told the editors at DC that if they gave me an 8-page horror story to pencil, that he'd ink it. And that's how I got my first job. I did an 8-page story for Sinister House of Secrets. I think that was the title.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that somehow got me in the door at Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And I did an 8-page werewolf story for one of their black and white mags. And then as soon as I finished it, the mag folded.
Oh, jeez.
It eventually got printed in, I think, Echo des Savants in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
But that eventually led to me getting my first monthly book at Marvel, which was Iron Fist.
Yeah. And Apex Comics says, Larry, I enjoyed your work on Iron Fist.
Okay. That was the book itself wasn't even called Iron. Iron Fist was a feature in Marvel Premiere.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It didn't have its own title for a couple of years, I think.
Yeah, was he teamed up with some? Or am I thinking of something different?
What?
Was Iron Fist teamed up with him? Was it Power Man or something?
No, that was later.
No? That was later on. That's later on. Okay.
Yeah. So that was a great experience for me. It was, Dick Giordano was inking it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to say that the first 4 inkers I ever had were Ralph Reese, Wally Wood, Neil Adams, and Dick Giordano.
Wow. Oh man, what a
that's incredible.
I say, look, it's been downhill ever since.
Yeah.
It started off high. Now, the whole time you were at Marvel, were you working under Shooter? Or for the majority?
For the majority, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was Shooter who hired me.
Yeah.
When I got floated out of DC.
Mm-hmm.
Al Milgram and I went to DC to be editors in like 77 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had the big implosion, and both of us were like cast adrift. And Al went directly to Marvel, and after a week he called me and says, "Hey, the water's fine."
Yeah.
Grab a suit, jump in.
I find that amazing. The story with DC Comics, like that you're an editor, and if you're let go because of, especially from working with Neil, and being known to get your books out on time, Well,
but it's basically the last hired were the first hired. That's, all these other guys had seniority,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I got no grudge. They had to do what they had to do. It's not like they came in and said, "Hey, you really suck."
Yeah. Get out.
Get out.
Get out, kid.
Yeah.
It was amicable.
Yeah. So now most of us, like my first work that I know you for is G.I. Joe. Can you tell us a bit of how, and I'm sure many people have heard the story, but could you give us a brief story of how you got involved with G.I. Joe?
Well, I was the last guy they asked.
Really?
Yeah. I've been trying for like a year at Marvel to get writing work, and nobody would give me writing work. They say, well, no, you can't, you're an artist, you can't write. Well, all the editors are writers, and the last thing they wanted was for artists to start writing their own stuff, because that's money out of their pockets.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when Hasbro came to Marvel, they wanted to do a G.I. Joe comic. So Shooter went to ask every contract writer, and they all turned it down, because in 1981, licensed toy books were like the bottom of the barrel. That was because the license money came off the top of the page rate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So the page rate was lower than the regular Marvel book. So like none of the A-list guys would deign to do one of them. And even the B-list guys want to take a cut in the rate.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And so all the contract guys turned it down. Then they asked all the non-contract writers, and they all turned it down. Then he went to every editorial office and asked every editor and assistant editor. And my office was the last one. He got to me, and I said, sure.
Yeah.
Now, did you think it would be as successful as it was when you were first pitched the idea?
Hell no. I mean, first of all, no toy book had ever lasted more than a year.
Yeah.
I mean, because, they all look crappy. Nobody cared about them. I was just looking to get my foot in the door. And one of the main things that I learned working for Wally Wood and Neil Adams was that there's no such thing as a B job.
Yeah.
You give your A effort, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And that was my attitude. I tried to give it the best shot that I could, even though the pay was really lousy. But
now,
miraculously, 2 or 3 months after I took on the book, royalties started.
Yeah.
There you go.
And all of a sudden, I'm getting these giant checks, and I'm going, hey, and then all of a sudden, everybody else is going, hey, maybe those toy books
Now, how developed?
Nobody knew at the time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. How would you?
Yeah. Well, it hadn't been done really, or none of them were successful.
But at the same time, though, it's like you said, though, you don't take any project like it is a B book. It's like give it your all, work hard. I mean, you really dug into it, didn't you? You really researched military tactics and things and stuff, and you tried to incorporate reality into the story, didn't you?
Well, yeah, because I was drawing from personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the core thing was I understood how soldiers thought, and I could understand the way they talk, the way all the stuff is done. By the time I was doing it, everything that I knew, the SOPs were like obsolete. Everything had changed.
Yeah.
But there was this bookstore called Sky Books, like 4 blocks away on Madison Avenue. It was a military bookstore, and I stopped in there, and there were this little coterie of people there that they knew everything.
Mhm.
Some real fanatics.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I got to know these guys, and I got to be good friends with this guy Lee Russell.
Mhm.
Who had, done 2 tours in Nam with the engineers, and during his entire time, every week he would fill up a box of stuff, stuff everybody else was throwing away. Used law tubes, indigenously made patches, small unit newsletters done on mimeograph.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Fill up a whole box, send
Yeah.
it to his mom's house in Brooklyn.
Jeez.
So, 10 years after the war was over, Lee Russell is one of the few people that's got all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I hired him to be the technical consultant on the Nam comic, mainly because he just had everything available.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could just pull it out of a box, and that's what. And then because of that, I was able to get him the gig as being the technical consultant on the Tour of Duty TV show.
Nice. Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't know that.
Cool.
Being the technical consultant on Platoon and on Miss Saigon and
Oh, wow.
all this stuff. And he was even the technical consultant on the Young Riders,
Oh, cool.
which was about the Pony Express.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was a great guy. But his job in the Army was to operate an Agent Orange dispenser.
Oh,
Ooh.
geez.
Yeah. They had these things on the backs of deuce and a halfs, and they would drive through the forest spewing this stuff.
Oof.
And the guys, they weren't wearing hazmat suits or respirators or anything, and it pretty much ate them up at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine. Jeez.
And it happened at a time in history when the government was denying that Agent Orange had anything.
Mm.
It's like these guys who went to the Middle East
Mhm.
and got all this weird stuff happen to them.
Yeah.
They didn't want to pay out.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
Exactly.
Get the shaft all the time. Now,
Yeah.
how develop? Now, I don't remember this, so I forgive me for if it's a stupid question, but I'm sure they had a small line of toys, what they wanted to do for G.I. Joe, but the universe really wasn't developed at all.
No, there was,
Right,
there was just before they had the 3 3/4 inch figures. There was a 12-inch,
Yeah.
and there was no universe for that at all. It was just they didn't even have names,
Mhm.
and they didn't have backgrounds. So one of the first things that I did was I sat down. I said, "Look, there's going to be 10 characters to begin with, to start, and they're going to want to add characters every year."
Mhm.
And I thought, 10 characters. That's bigger than the Avengers.
Yeah.
And I know from being in the office that everybody was always complaining about, I don't want to do work on the group books.
Yeah.
It's too much research. You gotta, all these different costumes and uniforms, and then you gotta be able to jam 6 figures into a panel. I mean,
Multiple word balloons.
yeah.
A lot of high shots so you can get all the word balloons.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like, doing Moonlight.
Yeah.
You got a character with an all white suit.
Yeah.
So what was it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I figured I had to be able to keep track of that large amount of characters. So I wrote these, what I call dossiers.
Oh, sure.
there was basically like a DD 201. Well, you know what that is, but these guys might not. That's your personnel file.
File card.
Okay.
Okay, so I wrote like a long paragraph on, like, where they came from, and personality stuff, and then a whole nother paragraph on their skills and their training, and then I would list like rank, age, blah blah blah, hometown, and then I also included in my dossiers, I included a psychological profile written by a fictitious shrink, right, and also a peer assessment profile supposedly written by another G.I. Joe character in that character's voice, describing his fellow, team member. And on top of that, I tried to base all the characters on people I actually knew, so that I could keep the personalities consistent. So I had these out on my desk, and one of the guys from Hasbro came over to Marvel, and they see this on my desk. Hey, we should put this on the back of the toy package.
Yeah.
Change everything.
One of the product managers, Kirk Bazigian, his job was to take my 2 pages, and boil it down to two short paragraphs.
Yeah.
And that's what went out. And I remember the product manager said, after about 6 months, they said, the salesmen, the guys from Hasbro that actually go out to the distributors and the wholesalers, to sell, each new line. They said, they would call into the office and say, look, send us 4 of these file cards. Because all we go into the meeting and we just read the file card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get a sale.
Wow.
So that cemented it. And then that became the industry standard. You can't put out an action figure without.
Because they were you were encouraged. I know when I was a kid, we'd cut them out and we'd keep them with our figures.
Yeah.
So when all of our friends were together, we'd have our cards, and a lot of times be like, who do you have? I have this. Sometimes we traded them. But then I remember one time I was like, why am I trading this? I don't have that figure. This has to stay with my figure. Why did I trade it? Mom!
I love how
Mom!
you say when we were kids, we still don't have the stack of them, right?
I know.
Back over there.
You're destroying the MOC value.
That's true, yeah.
That's true. But they were loved. They were loved, so they got played with. I mean, what was it like, working? What part did you have now with the toys, the cartoon, and the comic? It sounds like you. What's that?
I had nothing to do with the cartoon.
No. Okay.
No. And I've never actually seen any of them.
Really?
I've never seen a single episode of the animation.
Oh wow.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And considering that my wife worked for the animation studio.
Wow.
She's like, honey, you want nah, that's all right.
I guess G.I. Joe's no, thank you.
we got a really interesting super chat of a story I did not know of.
I didn't know about this either.
You want to pop that up?
Yeah. If anything comes up you're not comfortable asking, you answer. You don't have to. But Kevin Freer put this up. He said, "Why did Larry reject Todd McFarlane's completed version of G.I. Joe 61 and have it redrawn by Marshall Rogers?"
I didn't because the story did the job. I didn't really, the drawing itself by the various artists varied a lot. And I came to the decision not to be concerned with the painterly or drawing, artistic aspects, of the work. my main concern is that the storytelling has to be clear as a bell,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And though Marshall Rogers might have been considered not as dynamic as Todd, I thought, you know, I'm telling fairly complicated stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For that age range and for that time period, and I wanted my main parameter was that, you know, a semi-illiterate Eskimo should be able to pick up the book and figure out 3/4 of what it's about,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
without being able to read it, even, you know. And I knew that was possible, you know, because I remember there used to be a bookstore called Zen Books in Rockefeller Center. It was a Japanese bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
And they had manga, right?
Mm.
I was in there one day and I see this manga called Kozure Okame, you know, which is Lone Wolf and Cub.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked this up and I opened it up, and it just drew me right in.
Yeah.
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 And I can't read Japanese. Looking at the pictures, you know, and I thought it was so great that I bought up every copy they had and brought it back to continuity.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody that was coming in, you know, I would show it to them and they go, "Holy smoke!"
Yeah.
And I'd sell it to them for the cover price, whatever I paid for it, you know.
Yeah.
And, Frank Miller bought them, and Mike Kaluta bought them, and Barry Smith, and you know, and I remember sitting around with Kaluta and some other guys one night, and we were just talking about the stories, you know. Was, oh, remember the one when, like, you know, where the kid is left alone in the baby cart, and the whole story is about the kid, you know, and everybody's going, yeah, and then he gets out of the cart and he goes up, and after about 5 minutes, we all said, you know, none of us can read Japanese.
Yeah, you didn't have to, though, right?
but we knew the whole story. We knew these characters. We knew, you know, you could relate to it.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, and the same thing happened when I went to Zen Books and I found a copy of Akira.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I looked at, holy smoke!
Yeah. Mind blown, right?
I did the same thing. I bought every copy they had. You know, filled 2 shopping bags, brought it back to continuity. Within a week, they were all gone.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
And years later, Otomo comes to visit me at my office, and he looks on the shelf and he sees that first copy of Akira #1. You know, and he takes it off the shelf and he takes out his pen and he opens up the flyleaf and he draws this self-portrait of himself as a young boy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still in my copy.
Uh-huh.
And then he looked on my shelf and he saw that I had a complete set of Lone Wolf and Cub, but in digest form.
Mm.
He saw, you really need the deluxe. You should really have the deluxe ones.
Yeah.
A month later, this giant box shows up.
Oh, no way.
Amazing.
He sent me the complete set in, you know, big format, good paper.
That's awesome.
It's awesome stuff.
Yeah.
But that's
When are you gonna write a book about, you know, like, just call it comics, the world of comic books or something? I don't know what. I mean,
be really interesting. Everybody has to be dead first.
oh yeah.
Well, so let's, if you don't mind me getting into just kind of going back. I know Jay has a few questions on like the action figure end of G.I. Joe. And before we continue on to other topics, I'd love to just get back to G.I. Joe real quick.
Sure.
So Jay, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Larry. So I've read a ton of and watched a ton of your interviews at cons and stuff like that. And actually, you touched on a point where Ron Rudat would bring 10 to 15 Joes for you to kind of cram in the issues over the next year. And you said you would put a face to the name of people you knew in order to keep track of them. And I'm dying to know. Storm Shadow is my absolute favorite. Who in your real life is Storm Shadow based off of? The personality.
Well, he's based on he's a sort of a conglomerate.
Yeah.
He's a conglomerate in some weird ways. You know, I mean, there were two. There was one guy that I played judo with, and there was another guy that I knew in the Army, and
right.
they're sort of both combined. And you know, when Ron Wagner was drawing the book, you know, he was drawing me as Storm Shadow.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, most of them are based on real people. Like, you know, Stalker, for instance, is based on Ed Davis, who was a brilliant comic artist. He was the only guy that ever walked into continuity where Neil said, "This guy can draw better than me."
Wow.
Never heard Neil say that.
Amazing.
Ed could pick up any tool, and you know, he was just a natural. You know, he was a LRP, Long Range Recon Patrol, Airborne Ranger in Vietnam. Lost an eye, and he was a good buddy of mine, and he and I based a bunch of characters on him, not just Stalker, but Wraith in Wolverine is based on him.
Oh, wow.
And in fact, I gave the artist a photo of Ed, and that's what how his look came about. Because Ed wore like a Savile Row suit with a white shirt, no tie,
Right.
a Stetson cowboy hat, and Tony Montana boots.
Wow. Wow.
And he had a Smith 357 Magnum tucked into the small of his back.
Oh, jeez.
Walking around New York City.
Walking around New York City. Those were the times, though, right?
He was, you know, he was a Brooklyn native, you know. And I remember I was sitting on the D train with him in Brooklyn in the 70s, early 70s. And these three young punks got on the train, and they're woofing on Ed because of what he's wearing.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, Ed's not even responding. They come right up to him, and they're standing, you know, we're sitting, you know, there, and they're standing above us. And, you know, they were kids, but they were big.
Yeah, yeah.
And the one in the middle is being really aggressive, you know, like calling Ed all sorts of stuff, you know. And Ed just like that. This object bounces off the guy's chest and hits the floor. It spins. And when it stops spinning, he looks down and he sees that it's a jacketed hollow point 357 cartridge.
Whoa. Whoa.
And Ed looks up and he says, "The next one comes at you a lot faster."
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh.
So, so I based the character John Wraith on him, you know, in Wolverine, and I use that line in Wolverine number 60.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And it got stolen for it was used in Justified.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Exact same situation, exact same line. You know, and I think the writer claimed that he heard he heard somebody tell an anecdote like that on the Tonight Show or something.
Yeah, sure he did.
My story predated that.
Yeah, exactly.
I did, if I may. I had another quick action figure question. I'm not too sure if you can answer this side of it, but your first creations on the G.I. Joe front were Dr. Venom, Quinn, and of course Scarface. Do you know, is there any particular reason why Hasbro didn't make figures into that initial run of Joe's? Just because they're great characters.
Well, they eventually did.
Later on, but I mean, like, for then, how there was no Cobras.
They made October Guard, they made Scarface, they made all those guys. Well, because, you know, they had a limited amount that they could do every year. And then because of costs and manufacturing, there were limitations on those. I mean, the reason Snake Eyes is all black is that's the color of the plastic. And they saved, there was no paint fee.
Yeah. The budget ended, so they left it at that.
Budget, you know, budget limitations affected a lot of stuff. You know, so and they would build in these things like, oh, okay, so the next year we won't come up with 10 completely new figures. We'll do like redos of, you know, some of these previous guys.
Right.
That's why there's like 7 versions of Snake Eyes. And at the beginning, they were very hesitant to do female characters. They did Scarlet grudgingly because they thought our market is 10 and 11-year-old boys, and no 10 or 11-year-old boy is going to buy a female action figure because a male action figure is an action figure, but a female action figure is a doll.
Yeah.
A doll with guns.
Yeah.
I bought them.
So, and there were other factors that, you know, that came into it. You know, the thing is, if all you're doing is doing toys, then your mindset about what these characters are is very different. You know?
Right.
If you got to make stories about them, you know, all of a sudden you begin to see the limitations.
Yeah.
So the first issue of G.I. Joe, I sit down to write it, and I'm looking, and because I think visually, you know, I don't write in terms of words. I try to picture the whole story as a series of images in my head, and then when I sit down at the word processor, I'm just describing the little movie I saw in my head.
Do you work from breakdowns first? Do you like lay them out maybe in panel borders, like panel page? Oh, so let's okay.
Yeah. But when I first started writing, I was writing Archie Goodwin style. I was just drawing the whole story basically, and then penciling in the lettering. So I sit down and I'm looking at the characters, and well, none of the Cobras have faces. Right. Completely covered.
Yeah.
And you know, so that they had no agents of expression. Right. So it's very hard to have dramaturgy when you can't see.
Yeah.
You can't see a face. You can't see a reaction. So I thought, well, I gotta make up a Cobra character that isn't a figure, that has no mask, so that there's somebody to react to whatever Cobra Commander or anybody else says. I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well make her a hot babe.
Yeah. Yeah. Hot, yes.
Hot, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Put her in like a black leather outfit, you know.
Yeah.
And that was how, you know, we came up with the Baroness.
Yes.
And so Hasbro put, I think it was like a mail-in figure. You had to like send in coupons or points or something to get the banners. It was like tremendous. Everybody wanted it.
Yeah. So was there an editorial resistance as well, or was that pretty much easy from the comic book side?
The comic book side was very easy. I mean,
yeah.
It was, I think, Tom DeFalco and Danny O'Neill, the first editors. They were,
Yeah.
I think truthfully they were busy doing the superhero stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody expected, the stupid war book to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So nobody cared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was also sort of lucky to be working on books that at the time they gave them to me, they didn't really care about.
Yeah.
I think Wolverine was about to be canceled.
Oh wow!
Because
how about that?
After G.I. Joe was like the #1 selling comic in the country, I tried to get more writing work, and they said, "Oh no, that's just a fluke."
Are you kidding me? Wow! Holy crap!
I couldn't get any other writing work, and then that's the reason I got Wolverine was that it was about to go away or something. The numbers were so low, and so they let me do whatever I wanted on it. And
wow!
When I got the book, he was a depressed alcoholic living in Madripoor and calling himself Patch. Wasn't even wearing the uniform.
I remember that.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
So about a year after I started Wolverine, it's now like the #3 or #2 book, in the country. And I went back and I said, well, doesn't that prove something? And they said, no, it's another fluke. It's like,
oh, jeez.
You worked with Silvestri on that, didn't you?
Wow.
Mark Silvestri?
Silvestri worked with Adam.
Yeah.
Ebert, Mark Texera.
Yeah.
Really good artists on it. Ron Wagner, all these guys. And, we sold a lot of books, made really good royalties.
Hell yeah.
And
I think the trade paperback still does pretty good nowadays, doesn't it?
they're still
publishing them.
Still in reprint. Yeah. I've got more pages in reprint now than I had when I was like actually making new pages. And it was a strange time.
Well, Just a Kid from Brooklyn says that Lee Weeks did some Joe too. I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, Lee Weeks did some of it. Garano, a bunch of really good guys.
Yeah.
Well, it ran for 155 issues.
155 issues of the Marvel. I'm now up to number 274.
Yeah. Now, for each iteration that's come back, have you been primarily involved in the G.I. Joe books?
No.
No,
people, like I think Devil's Dude took it over, and they, I guess they figured I was washed up. They didn't offer me anything. They sort of rebooted it in their own little universe or something and created all these new characters. And I don't think any of them are still around. So, when IDW picked it up, I guess they didn't think I was good enough to write the main title. They have a G.I. Joe title, and I don't write it. I write the retro a Real American Hero title.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked up the numbering on that from the last issue of the Marvel run.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
That's smart. That's actually really smart too.
When did you start doing the series again?
See, my continuity, I just picked up my old continuity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my G.I. Joe universe is completely different than the main title universe at IDW, which is G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
And I've never read any of that. I've never read the Devil's Due stuff. I've never read any of the other IDW G.I. Joe titles because I wanted to keep my universe, pure.
Mm-hmm.
They killed off characters in these other universes, and they added characters, and that does not affect my universe at all.
That's awesome.
The Hamaverse.
The Hamaverse, yeah, the Hamaverse.
Yeah, man.
And the reason I still continue to do it is this not a hassle?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They don't mess with me.
Much with success. Why should they?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
They let me do what I want. They know I'm not going to do something crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to violate the characters.
Mm-hmm.
So even if my page rate is lower, it's worth not having the hassle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's easy for me to do. It's like going home, and I like being in that universe, and I think maybe it shows.
I think everyone likes reading that that universe as well.
Well, because you know what it is? It's when you continue reading on, it holds. Like you said, your continuity just goes on. So it's like once you left off, because I read all those issues growing up, and then when IDW took over, you were probably a few issues in before I realized it was that you were even back at it, and it basically picked up. It actually made me go back and read, back at one. And then each night I read one going up, but it holds, which is great. Where the other series, a couple that I did dabble in, it didn't really do much for me, So it's your storytelling, the way you do it is honestly better than any other iteration of it out there.
Well, the other factor is that since I based all the characters on my friends and people I know, it's like. That's one of the reasons why I couldn't read the other stuff or watch the TV shows. So those aren't my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. that makes sense now. There was a little shock when we heard you'd never seen it, but now that makes perfect sense. They're not your characters.
Yeah.
Mentally,
and they're not my universe.
Yeah.
And I try to shoot for consistency.
Mm-hmm.
I think consistency is a huge selling factor.
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a kid always hating it when it was a new artist every issue. Or a new writer would take over and they would completely trash,
Mm-hmm.
everything the previous writer.
Yeah.
Had,
Yeah.
And that's not my thinking. It's like if I'm not creating the character in the universe and I'm taking over something that's been established, I figure I'm the custodian,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
that I have a responsibility to maintain, and strengthen what's already there rather than tear it apart and start all over again.
Yeah.
One of the big drawbacks of DC in the last 20 years is that they keep taking apart the universe.
Yeah.
Get it back together.
Yeah.
and you can't keep track of it anymore.
Yeah, yep.
Very unappealing, to be honest. That's my opinion.
Well, it's hard to keep up. It's
Yeah.
hard to keep up with everything because when you do start liking something, it's gone. You're like, wait, they canceled it. That was just starting to actually get good.
Right.
And then they, Marvel did has done the same thing with some stuff too. It's just it starts to get really good, and then it ends up some of it just seems like it goes to the side, to the wayside, and then they just start working on something else, and it's like that was really good. I don't know.
It's also that it's very difficult to keep somebody on something for a long time. I mean, how many other guys are out there that have done 274 issues of the title?
Yeah.
Um,
None. Pretty much.
I was so happy to get any book that they would give me.
Yeah.
That they would have to pry it out of my cold dead pages.
Yeah.
I've never quit a book. I've been fired off of them. I've been summarily, 86th. But I would stick it out to the very end. If I had.
So Larry, if I may, when they were writing the G.I. Joe, the animated film with the Cobra Law and all that stuff, did they try and push their version of Cobra Commander on you, or did you have kind of creative freedom to continue Cobra Commander the way you saw him?
I rejected that whole premise.
Right.
I just said I'm not going to. I still refuse to draw any of those characters. People ask me to draw Serpentor or one of these Cobra Law characters.
So they let you do your own. They let you keep Commander the way he was, and you just did your own thing. That's great.
Well, no, they what they did was they killed Cobra Commander in the movie, and they wanted me to kill Cobra Commander in the comic. And in fact, they ordered me to kill Cobra Commander.
Okay. Yeah.
And I called them back and I said, "That's a really dumb move, because he's just as popular as the good guy character."
Yeah.
Well, yeah. You had to have him.
And so we killed him off. Sure enough, our sales dropped over 20%.
Sure.
Wow.
We got hundreds of letters from kids saying they would never buy the book again. So I brought him back.
There you go. There you go.
In a great way, I might add.
And he would try to push all sorts of stuff on me, and I would say, no,
So how did the character development
back, or they would fire me? They fired me off the file cards like 3 times. Because a new product manager would come in or something, and they'd go, "Why are we paying this Hama guy all this money to write these stupid file cards when we can get a 17-year-old intern in the office to write them on time?"
No.
It last a week, because they would all write these file cards that were like, and he's the very best at whatever he does, and
jungle expert.
Yeah.
and also an Olympic downhill skier too.
None of them knew anything about military terminology or technology or anything, so they would just like make up this stuff, and it would take about a week to 2 weeks, and they call me back. "Oh, would you come back?" And
of course,
I'd say, well, sure, but you understand, my rate just doubled.
There you go, buddy.
So it was my way of getting a raise, but for the most part, they left me alone, and
now were all the characters created by Hasbro and stuff like that and brought to you for actual development, or were you was Hasbro and yourself creating the characters in the G.I. Joe universe?
Named Ron Rudat
Mm-hmm.
at Hasbro. He was their designer. And so he would draw, I mean, let's, for example, the first year, they sent me 10 black and white drawings done by Ron Rudat, and they were labeled Commando, infantry, mortar guy.
Mortar guy.
Mortar guy. I like mortar guy.
Bazooka guy. So I had to come up with names and background for the characters, and then, then when I had, in the course of writing the series, I would make up characters that weren't figures, and like a lot of them got made into figures, like the Baroness and eventually Quinn and the October Guards and characters like that. That's right.
That's right.
Oh, nice.
Is he still active?
No, he's retired.
Did he? Yeah, he's fully retired, right?
Yeah, but he does cons.
He does, yeah. We should get him on. He's got a portfolio like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, gotta get. Oh my gosh.
I mean, I think he did everything that was popular in the 80s, man.
Yeah.
Everything, action figure wise and whatnot with the designing and stuff. It's incredible.
That would be fantastic.
But one thing I would like to touch on, moving out of the G.I. Joe world, is Bucky O'Hare.
Yeah.
Okay. What about?
Let's talk about how did Bucky O'Hare come to be?
I was an editor at DC, and they came to me and they hinted to me and Al Milgram and said, "Look, we're going to have creator-owned comics here at DC. We're going to come up with a creator contract, and you'll own a piece of the character." And wow,
yeah.
Oh, we just got a super chat here. And let's see. It says, in an interview with Comic Book Resources, you mentioned that Neil Adams still has the file for the unpublished second story arc of Bucky O'Hare. Do you have a copy of the file, and do you plan to ever publish the second story arc?
Well, that's all up to Neil. I mean, I wrote the whole second graphic novel, and Michael Golden drew like 3/4 of it.
Oh wow!
Did so? Oh,
it's pretty amazing. Bucky O'Hare was sort of my tribute to Wally Wood. Thing is, like, I'd always wanted to do funny animal comics. I'm a duck man, basically. When I got into the business, there was no work for ducks. Yeah. So you had to do like horror or superheroes or whatever. And this is, I thought, my chance to do like science fiction, funny animals, adventure.
Yeah.
And so I sat down and I designed the characters and figured out what I needed to have to do to make these characters viable cross-platform. They're 3.5 to 4 heads tall, which is a perfect size for video games. That's Sonic proportions. Sonic Hedgehog. They have a limited number of colors for the molding process. For the production process. There's no undercuts in the character design. They don't have holsters. They have 3mm plugs, and all their accessories have 3mm holes in them. And they have 3mm holes in the soles of their feet. So all those design things are built into the comic characters, right? So that once you make a toy out of it, you don't have to compromise the design.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
clever.
The toy like the comic book character.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The spaceship has like 3mm plugs sticking out of it, so you can stick figures on it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the thinking was the designs had to work in all the possible mediums, in comics, in animation, and video games. Because in my experience, I found out that there's always this discrepancy, between different iterations. And I remember as a kid, getting a toy that was based on something I liked and going, doesn't look anything like it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I mean, when you work on this stuff, you have to put on your 9-year-old shoes.
Yeah.
And you had to try to remember what it was that you liked about these things and what you didn't like. And the things that bothered me. And so when I sat down to create this stuff, I tried to make it mistake proof. I wanted not to have those discrepancies happen.
Cool.
And that consistency across the iterations really cements the whole feeling of that it's real and it's instead of I guess I have to let that slide. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. Now, was there always a vision for the comic book to go to a video game to an animated series, or was the comic book made and then you were approached?
No. I thought about it as all those things.
Nice.
I planned out the first 48-page graphic novel to be half the screenplay.
Oh, okay.
That the 2 48-page graphic novels put together equal the storyboards for an animated feature.
Oh, that's incredible.
Wow. Cool.
Now, if I may, speaking about Michael Golden, who's one of my favorites, can you give us a little insight on the revolutionary, if I may, silent issue?
What? What does that have to do with Michael Golden?
The issue with no word balloons.
Yeah. What?
Didn't Michael Golden? Yeah, he did the comic book that had no word balloons in it.
No, that was me.
Oh, that was you. All right, I'm sorry. I thought that Michael did that with you.
No.
Oh, see, my age is showing through too. I apologize and forgive me.
And Steve Lealoa inked it.
Oh, okay. So it's Steve. All right, I apologize. So, how did that come about? I mean, was it? I mean, obviously got the story and everything, but how did you do the silent interlude? There you go. It was Snake Eyes 21 was Hama. Sorry, Brian. I apologize. I'm tired. I've been up since 5.
What happened was that for some reason, maybe Denny lost a whole issue on his desk or something, but we had to produce an entire issue of G.I. Joe in something like 2.5 or 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
From having nothing. And so I said, well, look, if we don't have lettering, that saves us a week.
Yeah.
Back then, when everything had to go like FedEx, or there were no attaching JPEGs to emails. It was physical transportation of stuff. I said, okay, I'll write it and draw it at the same time. You won't have lettering. I'll make it a silent issue. And I started on Friday, and I handed it in on Monday.
Oh,
wow.
Wow, that's incredible.
The entire issue in 3 days. Long days. And to be fair, I did breakdowns. I didn't do finished type pencils.
Mm-hmm.
But my breakdowns are fairly tight, you know. And Steve Lailoa is really a great inker, you know. So and he was able to finish it in record time, and as he was sending in pages, they were like coloring them.
That's incredible.
And that's the issue when you decided to put Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, like reveal that they were somehow connected.
Well, yeah. See, the thing is, I've never written an outline in my life. I never considered, you know, I don't identify as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people, well, what do you do? I'm a penciler with a word processor. Because my thinking about it is all visual. You know, the words and dialogue come dead last.
Mm-hmm.
So I write page by page. I start out with all I had to start out with on Silent Interlude was this image of this castle and Storm Shadow on a flying wing carrying Scarlet towards the castle. That's all I had.
Mm.
And I made it up page by page as I went. And
That's incredible.
halfway through, Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes are fighting, and they both tear their sleeves.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to the next page here. What can I do with that? I thought, what if they had the same tattoo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that.
So I've had a copy of the I Ching since like high school. And I used an I Ching hexagram on the breastplate of Lake Queen in Iron Fist. But it was, I think, number 64 before completion. So I figured, okay, I'll use number 63, which is after completion, because it's an easy hexagram to remember. It's alternating broken lines and solid lines with a broken line on top. I can remember that.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't remember. I could never remember which way the webbing on Spider-Man's outfit is supposed to.
Yeah.
Nobody can.
Yeah, you gotta think, does it go
Does it go this way?
out?
Because there's no logic to it, right?
Yeah.
So I figured, I want to make life as easy as possible for myself, because I'm gonna have to keep drawing this stuff over and over again. Do stuff that I can remember. So that's how that came to be. I had no idea when I put those tattoos on their forearms what those tattoos meant.
Wow, that's
why they both had it, or any of that stuff. And 2 issues later, in the Snake Eyes origin, I had to come up with the whole Arashikage ninja clan, the backstory in Vietnam and all that stuff, just to explain, why I put those tattoos on their forearms.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Larry, G.I. Joe 26 is my favorite. It's such a amazing story. It's so good.
Oh, thank you.
So I love it.
Jay, do you know anybody with that tattoo?
What's that, Billy?
Do you know anyone with one of those tattoos?
Oh, I know.
Thank you, Mr. Hama.
I've had thousands of people come up to me and show me this. Some of them have them upside down. It's like,
no, I don't. I made sure. Mine is right.
I don't have the heart to tell them.
What a great story.
That is a great story.
People that have the Japanese kanji for toilet tattooed on their arm.
Oh, I know. You're getting strength, and they're making it, I don't know, sorrow or something.
Yeah, they tell me, oh, it means fortitude. Oh yeah.
Like, I don't think so. I don't think that's what that means.
Yeah, somebody. I saw it on like Instagram or Twitter, and it's a girl, and she's an Asian girl, and she's holding up her arm, and it says, "It finally happened," and she has a tattoo, and it says like "love" in English or something. You know what I mean? Like finally, like an Asian person got Arabic lettering on. You know what I mean? Of LOVE in English.
Yeah, and I'll bet a lot of those people don't know, have no idea what it means.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, have you? There's been a lot of people, and I'm skimming through the chat here, and a lot of them want to know, have you had any involvement or anything in the G.I. Joe live action films, or any thoughts on the new Snake Eyes film?
Well, they hired me as the technical consultant on the first one. And my only contribution to that was that every single day I would send them a message that said, Snake Eyes can't talk. Because in the first draft of the script, they had him speak, in the last 5 minutes of the movie. And I said, well, but he can't talk. And the producer said, yeah, but don't you see how cool this is?
Oh no.
He doesn't say anything. And at the end of the movie, he talks.
Oh.
And I said, but he can't speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like he took a vow of silence.
Yeah.
It's not like a choice.
Oh.
And so I figured I earned my fee by just, standing my ground on that.
Mm.
Of course, they didn't hire me for the second movie, but I thought the second movie was better. They hired me as technical consultant on the Snake Eyes movie.
Oh, awesome.
They flew me out to Vancouver, so I could see the sets, and we shot a cameo on one of the sets.
Oh, nice.
I'm actually in that.
Can you give us a little hint of that, of what the cameo is, or is that going to be a surprise?
I can't really. I'm not allowed to talk about.
Okay.
You gotta
see it.
It's a world of NDAs.
Yeah. Of course.
But they finished principal photography, and the stuff I saw was just amazing. They brought in. This is more of a martial arts movie than a science fiction military movie. And they brought in the sword fight choreographer who did Rurouni Kenshin.
Oh, good.
This is an amazing movie, Japanese. It's a period eka, the sword movie. It's based on a very popular manga, and it was also made into an anime. And it's extreme. The sword fights in those Rurouni Kenshin movies, just amazing. And they got the choreographer for that. So the fights is going to be amazing. They built a whole Tokyo alley in Vancouver. It's a block away. This narrow alley. They brought in something like 50 actual Japanese air conditioners that look very different from our air conditioners.
Yeah.
They had all the plumbing and stuff, and they had set it up so we could with with pipes so that they could have rain falling in the alley. And they shot this incredible fight, this ninja fight in the alley in the rain. It's pretty amazing. If the rest of the action stuff is anywhere even near as good as that, then it's going to be pretty.
It's going to be good.
Looking forward to
That's encouraging.
Yeah. I'm very much looking forward to that movie.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's cool. And then I see here going through the chat that you had an action figure on Kickstarter?
That I had an action figure.
Yeah, there's a Larry Hama action figure that was on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
Oh, you didn't do that? Oh, okay. Do they have to get your permission for that?
I'm not going to stop them.
No. They're at least going to send you one?
Figure,
They should at least send you one. Jeez.
I've got something like 10 custom action figures that people have made of me over the years.
That's cool.
Larry, for the original line, was there any particular reason why they chose Tunnel Rat for your likeness? Did you pick that character?
Not really. I mean,
No.
It was one year that they decided to like do actual likenesses. So like, it's all like people that worked at Hasbro. Kirk Bazzigian is Law and Order, and they hired the sculptor, this guy from Brooklyn who did all the holograms for credit cards. He's the original sculptor that did the original Dove on the Visa card.
Right.
And because they all had the holograms had to be the same size as the reproduction. So that Dove is like that big.
Oh, wow.
And really detailed. So they sent him up to my office at Marvel, and he took Polaroids and did some sketches. And but of course, when you shrink the head down to like that, and then it goes through 5 generations before it gets to the actual plastic figure. It still comes out looking like a lump.
Yeah, of course.
But the mold making technology and the injection molding technology has improved a few 100% since then.
Oh yeah,
they can get a lot more detail.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, now they like scan your
early
head.
days. Everybody looked just sort of kind of lumpy.
Yeah.
And the newer action figures can actually get expressions, facial nuances, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, they could build it, 3D, with the computer and just build it off of a photograph of the model, the actor or something like that. Or
well, they usually bring the actors into a studio, and they showed the processes now. Like they literally actually like scan their heads, and they do full 3D renderings on the computer, and you get like every nook and cranny of the face, and they can make it, So that's why these action figures are incredible looking. Like compared to what I had growing up, some of them didn't even look like people. You knew there was a nose, ears, and whatnot. It was more about the accessories they came with. Now it's like about the likeness.
Yeah, but everything is like. Look, when I was a kid, all we had was like Green Army men. It was like they were just these green lumps, basically. And they were all like, you had one guy like holding a rifle like this.
I like the guy with the M16 over his head, dude. He said it was infantry with the bayonet on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's all that was available.
Yeah.
I love the Green Army Men, though. I still do.
Oh yeah, I love it too.
Oh, I love them. I want to make sure my boys have them. I'm going to get them when they're a little older. They'll have their Green Army Men because you need them for the sandbox. Every boy needs to grow up with the Green Army Men or the beige Army Men. I had beige ones.
Well, they're supposed to be the Japanese, the beige, unless it's like the German Africa Corps ones.
Yeah.
I had like light green, very, very dark green, and beige.
Well, Hasbro's bringing out the Joes again. Didn't you guys see the toy fair? The Scarlet Roblox, Duke, and Snake Eyes. They're 6-inch now, which I don't know how they're going to make vehicles for 6-inch Joes, but they look pretty cool.
Well, I don't know if they're planning to do. Are they really planning to do vehicles for those guys? I mean, the thing that most lay people don't understand about G.I. Joe is that it was always considered a vehicle line.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. How are you going to do a Sky Striker for a 6-inch?
The purpose was to sell vehicles. The actual figures were like McDonald's hamburgers.
Mm-hmm.
They were the loss leader. McDonald's makes its money on the French fries and sodas.
Yeah.
Right? So the vehicles were the French fries and the sodas.
Yeah.
And the Joes themselves were the hamburgers. When you look at the catalog, you start to understand that. Because something like a third to half of the figures were drivers of vehicles.
Yeah.
So you could only get them if you got the vehicle.
That was a brilliant marketing move. I loved it because you could only get Clutch if you got the Vamp, right? So it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's the only toy line with a 7-foot ship.
Oh my god! It's
the greatest toy of all time.
It might be bigger than 7 feet, right? I mean, it's
Was it 7.5? I thought it was 7 feet.
Huge.
Yeah,
It's 7. It's 7.
It is 7 feet, right? Yeah.
When they brought the prototype to Marvel to show us,
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Everybody was like, "Holy smoke!"
Yeah.
Well, you needed that big of an aircraft carrier though, because your F-15 or your jets, that you had for your figures needed a big playset like that because you could run your jets right off it. I personally didn't have one. I knew one kid that did, and everyone hated
the
him for
USS
having it.
flag. That playset is a testament to how big the real American Hero line was in the 80s. It was the king. There's never been a playset like that, like the flag.
No.
Yeah. Jay, do you have that? Do you have one of those?
No, I don't have one.
No, I mean, Jay. Did you have one?
All the NDA stuff, I'm not allowed to talk about any of that stuff right now. Yeah. So yeah. I've seen one, I'll put it to you that way. Wink wink.
There you go.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I mean,
So many secrets.
I would have room for one.
Right.
I mean, basically, they would send me the whole line every year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I realized that if I kept all this stuff, I'd not have any space after about 3 years. And everybody, all my friends that had sons, they benefited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Uncle Larry gave away a lot of toys.
A lot of G.I. Joes. One of our producers, Brian Blevins, is chiming in the chat here. He says, did Larry know they made Major Blood an actual spy for the G.I. Joe team? And then his second question is, what are his thoughts on Sergeant Slaughter?
Well, two things. I don't quite understand the first question.
He just asked, did you know they made Major Blood an actual spy for the G.I. Joe team?
What does that mean?
I don't know. Blevins, can you elaborate on that? And we can go to the question.
That might have been in reference to the cartoon. Blood might have betrayed Cobra for an episode or something, but
we didn't watch the cartoon.
Yeah, you didn't watch the cartoons.
Yeah.
Watch the cartoon. Blevins, pay attention. Come on. Jeez. He's now demoted to intern.
No.
I'll have a large coffee in the morning, Blevins.
Yes.
2 cream, 1 sugar.
What are your thoughts of people like, the Refrigerator Perry and Sergeant Slaughter becoming official Joes?
Well, those are deals that Hasbro made, and I don't have anything against it.
Mm.
I've gotten to know the Sarge.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He's a real sweetheart. I mean, I've gotten to know a lot of these wrestlers from going to cons.
Yeah.
I'd rather hang out with the wrestlers than a lot of the comic people.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Unless you're in Albuquerque and you're stuck with Billy.
Well, I obviously don't know anything about comic books, so I mean, look at my stupid question. I thought that Michael Golden worked with him on the silent issue. So
that was embarrassing.
Half a dozen wrestlers, and they're fun guys. The Sergeant Slaughter is great. He's a cool guy.
And then we got Mark C. He came in with a super chat. Just kind of this more, I think, goes with what you were saying, Jay. The latest 6-inch Joes didn't interest me. I love G.I. Joe. Joe when it stayed closer to super cool army men, the more sci-fi that's put in, the less I'm interested. These new Joes are too sci-fi for me.
Yeah, they really changed the look of Roadblock, and they changed his gun. Him and Duke have almost sci-fi weapons now. They don't have real machine guns or anything, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Guess that's just the way it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is, it is sort of sci-fi in a way for a normal human being to be carrying around a Ma Deuce.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally bigger than anything Cable ever carried.
That's
true.
Yeah, that is true. True. But we've actually gone way over our time. Larry, thank you so much again for coming on. We've been on almost 2 hours now, so I apologize if we held you up, but it was a blast having you on.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, now I got to go walk the dog.
Yeah. Well, and I also want to thank you for, of course, for everything and doing this. And I also want you to know that all of us comic book pros, when a really good Baroness walks by, we all fist bump and say, "Thank you, Larry Hama."
That is true. So
Larry, you're fantastic. Thank you so much, my friend. Is there anything you want to plug or talk about? I mean, are you going to be attending any shows? Are you worried about this Convi 19 thing?
Well, I'm not canceling anything now, but who knows what, but it may be out of my hands. It may be out of all of our hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very true.
If the CDC, says it's a pandemic, and the WHO says it, I think it would behoove us to pay attention.
I think you're right.
These are the guys who crunch the numbers and know the facts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it ain't going to go away easy.
Yeah.
So see, I'm supposed to be at Toylanta in a couple of weeks. But I haven't heard anything about anything canceling there, and we'll see.
Awesome. Well, I'm working on I'm finishing up. I'm doing an homage.
All right.
To was it number 7? I think was it. So that's for the Expendables. So it's Audie Murphy and Barney. So there's a quick look at it.
Wicked.
I can't look. Nice. It's a real of a Herb Trimpe's art. It's a real homage to Herb, and just a little fanboy moment here with Zach has me doing that cover. So it'll be done tonight.
I see things coming out at Marvel. I'm writing Albert and LCD 2-parter. They're Wolverine characters, and I'm doing a 6-part Iron Fist.
Oh, great!
Oh, very awesome.
Are you drawing that as well?
No, just writing those. But I'm laying out a new book for Guy Dorian.
God, we love Guy.
And writing it and laying it out, and working on a lot of different projects. So
you're always working.
Awesome.
Having fun.
It
Having
keeps you
fun,
young.
keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you gotta, you know, I was like 22 years old when I went to work for Wally Wood. And I remember one of the first things he said, we were sitting there and he says, hey, you know, guys like us, we don't retire. We just drop dead at the drawing table.
Oh shit! Oh,
Whoa.
oh my god!
Yo.
I'm like 22 years old and I'm thinking, what?
I don't want to like. Oh my gosh!
And you know what? He was right.
He was right. Yeah.
Because there's no retirement for us.
Yeah.
We don't have pensions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, luckily, you know, it's not like, you know, loading trucks or, you know, cutting down trees or
Yeah.
Yeah.
a road gag. You know, we're doing stuff that we could do, you know, into our, you know, 80s.
Right. Yeah.
You know, if we had the inclination to.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot harder in comics to do that after you're 40.
Yeah.
Because the ageism, you know,
Mm-hmm.
sets in, and you know, and styles go out of style.
Yeah.
It happened so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Look, it happened to Jack Kirby,
Yeah.
Ditko, and Herb Trimpe.
Yeah.
If it could happen to them,
Yeah.
what chance do we have?
That's true.
You know, I remember Jim Shooter walking down the hall begging art editors to give Steve Ditko some work.
Wow.
Wow.
And it's
Crazy.
and he's Steve Ditko.
I know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy. You know, like Jack Kirby, there's no place for you here. Sorry, we don't have any work for you. Just nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, it's like, or saying, oh, you know, your stuff is played.
Mm.
You know?
I mean, would they try to change their style, or was there too much pride in it? Were they trying to stick with the times and try to somewhat mimic the style that was going on?
Well, that's a losing situation.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you know, these flavor of the week styles, they come and go too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, what's incredibly popular, you know, one year is going to just be like,
Mm-hmm.
when something becomes passe, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
The general consensus then is that, like, oh, that's old school.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why, you know, nobody wanted me to write any of the new G.I. Joe books. I said,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you're old school.
It's not
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm going to just touch on something really quick because this is kind of true. So Cryptic Comics, you know, there's still a demand for those old styles in indie comics.
Mhm.
The big two just don't realize that. And, you know, our show and on Tuesdays, we more focus on like independent creators crowdfunding their own stuff and what guys are doing, just trying to publish their own things because it's getting really big now. It is true. A lot of the stuff that people kind of say is like out of style and things like that, there's actually a really huge demand for it. I think it's just, you know, when you're doing the indie thing and you can publish what you want, you can go in any direction you want.
Yeah.
Where I think, you know, when you're a large corporation and stuff, they really kind of geared towards maybe what's safe. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but you know, those styles aren't dead. I mean, I'd love the Ditko stuff. You know, I love that. And I love when people bring some of that stuff back.
Yeah.
You know, even some of the writing, you know, just a good old adventure. Like, take me out of my crazy world where I've got, you know, 1.5-year-old twins and this and that. Like, let me go on a little adventure for 24 pages and just escape. You know, I love that.
Well, you know, I remember in the late 80s, Mark Grunwald, you know, the editor at Marvel, he told me one day at lunch, you know, your stories are really old fashioned. I was sort of like, taken aback like that. I said, what do you mean by old fashioned?
Yeah.
And he says, well, The stories make sense and the characters are likable.
No.
Well, if you Dan DiDio just last year, near the end of the year, was lamenting how the DC facsimile books, the reprints of the old comics, are outselling the new titles.
Yeah.
Well, wake up and smell the don't.
It was like one of those things like you shouldn't.
Deeper. I mean,
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Just continue giving good stories, right? Just let us escape. That's all.
Yeah, but there's, a lot of it has to do with what's wrong at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have, all these editors now who neither write or draw.
That's true. Yeah.
What they think they know how to do is edit.
Right.
Yeah.
And I come out of this generation where like just about every editor was a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had a few artist editors, like Joe Kubert and guys like that. And at Marvel, you had these guys on staff, like Johnny Romita Sr.
Mm-hmm.
could actually, instruct the young guys.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have that anymore.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And you have nobody at any of the companies, except maybe Marvel has Joe Quesada.
Mm-hmm.
But other than Joe, there's not that many people in the upper echelons who know a damn thing about visual storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's beginning to show.
Yeah.
Because like if you don't know anything about it, you can't fix it if it's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, most successful businesses, right? I don't know if you've ever come across this. Like, say there's like a really successful restaurant or really successful something. Someone gives an offer just because they think they can make something bigger, but they don't have the experience in it. So what happens? They can't recreate what the original person did because there was a different magic there. They knew what they were doing. They started off in the trenches. They didn't just try to go into something successful and thinking they can still be successful and making it different.
Yeah.
But
you also have a lot of these editors, and you run across them that they know everything about writing, right? They could tell you everything about writing, but they just can't write themselves, or they've never written anything themselves.
Right.
And they're dictating story to you. And, it's like the critic, the big time movie critic or the big time art critic who can't even draw.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. But it runs both ways too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember once John Buscema, who's like one of the best artists ever, right? Mm-hmm. He was complaining about the writing on the Conan stuff, and I said, "Well, okay, why don't you write one yourself?" Knock yourself out, John.
Yeah.
So he goes home and he proceeds to write the story. And the first 10 pages are people sitting around in a room explaining the plot.
Oh, God, yeah.
And he called me up and he says, "It's a lot harder than I thought it was."
Oh, that's
But, at least he was smart enough to realize that.
To recognize that, yeah.
But until you actually try to do something, you don't know.
Yeah.
It's true.
Very true. It's true.
Well, Jay, do you have anything else for Mr. Hama?
I just want to say, Larry, thanks for making my childhood incredible and for being so awesome in the Joe community to this day still. And I want to show you real quick just my childhood Storm Shadow. He's a little yellow, but thank you for bringing him to life.
Have you replaced the O-rings?
Oh, of course I have. Come on, Larry. Of course I have. This is an amateur hour here. Jeez.
Yeah.
Did you used to twist yours around and around and around and around and around so they can do like thunder kicks?
My original Joes are all in pieces because the the O-rings disintegrated.
Disintegrate, yeah. I've replaced a lot, but I do want to say thank you. And thanks for you guys for having me on the show again. I really appreciate it. And thanks to you, Mr. Hama.
Well, thank you guys for having me on the show.
And the same thing. Yeah, we all thank you, Larry, just for all the work and all the inspiration, conversation, friendship, everything like that. You really are. You're one of my comic book heroes. You really are. And thank you for your service to our country as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And you go walk your dog. I know you got to walk your dog now. If you ever want to come on, you're always welcome, but I understand if you don't. All right, Larry. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Have a great night.
Thank you all for joining us. This was a great show. You guys rock.
Yes.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Dude.
Great
and
show.
I had dinner with him 3 nights in a row. And I would walk over to him and I'm like, so Larry, so I'm talking to my buddy James Sanchez, and James and I are sitting there. I'm like, well, Larry's hanging out, and I don't think he's with anybody. So I'm like, so asking if he wants to come. So I'm like, Larry, you got dinner plans? He's like, no, I was thinking about getting a burger at the hotel. I'm like, you want to come out with us? He's like, sure. We're like, yes.
That's awesome. I could listen to him talk for fucking years, man. Like
you got to hear his stories. It's not even stuff. I wanted to get into Coletta and like these crazy Marvel stories. Like you got to think that he's worked for everyone, from Stan. You know what I mean? He's worked with everybody, and he's just got the greatest stories too. And it's unbelievable. The life he has.
Really tragic for when he's talking about the G.I. Joe book now and how he's not allowed to be on the main book because he's not good enough.
Yeah.
He created all the characters.
But that the book he's currently doing now, like if you talk to anyone, that is the main book.
Oh, of course.
That is the main book because it continues on because all the magic those first 155 issues had, less a couple, I think there's a few he didn't write, but either way, it all went together. It really continued. Like it didn't change or anything. He just picked up where he left off. So it all still holds that same magic that it had.
Just from like I'm not a writer at all, but I can't imagine creating something for decades and then you get offered to do it again and they're like, well, you're not good enough to do the main book, but you can do the sub book. It's like
especially since it's a Bible like that.
Yeah.
Like something that could kill you.
Yeah.
Brian says, Brian Hawkins said that Brian Shearer has had dinner with Larry multiple times, but Larry never remembers him.
How many people? Well, even you could even attest to that, Billy. I mean, there's people that are like, you don't remember me? It's like, dude, do you know how many people you meet?
Yeah. Dude, I broke.
I reminded you who I was this morning.
Brian Blevins out there, and he's like, we hung out, and I remember talking about 15 years ago about duck hunting, and then we were supposed to get together, and I think something happened. One of my boys got sick or something, and I was on the phone with Debbie, like, I can't hang out. I just got to go back to my room or whatever. Yeah. And Blevins is very highly insulted. He's like, I can't believe you don't remember that. I'm like,
imagine for Larry, imagine how many people say to him what I did. Like, thank you for making my childhood that much more awesome. He gets that like daily, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's true. I mean,
we all have to get together with him.
Yeah,
New York Comic-Con. Jay, you coming down from New York?
No, but we're shooting actually at Joe Fest, which I think is somewhere in the summer. Georgia. That's where it is.
Georgia.
Oh well, yeah, because I don't know if he'll be at Dragon Con, but he lives in New York.
Actually, we're doing a panel in Dragon Con at Dragon Con. That's in Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
Coming down the Dragon Con too.
Yeah, Dragon Con. I'm going down to.
Oh, there you go. There you go. We got to hook up.
Are you going to be there for the whole thing, or are you guys just going for like? Do you know?
Oh, I assume we'll be shooting the whole time if we're going to make the effort to go there for sure. But we got invited as guests. So we're going to do a panel, and then we're going to shoot. If you guys want to be shot, talk about toys and stuff. Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
Absolutely. Because I want to talk about the other G.I. Joes, my G.I. Joes, like,
your
I'd love to write a story on them. These kind.
Yeah.
Their hands were like that.
And they really were.
They had the action.
Oh, that's Kung Fu Grip. That's the next one.
Yeah.
Then you had Eagle Eye G.I. Joe. Then you had the Intruders came from under.
Yeah, Eagle Eye one was just creepy. He was just like.
Yeah. Well, the Eagle Eye G.I. Joe, his the rubber band within his head or whatever would always break. So we just made him blind.
Blevins, not insulted, just utterly depressingly sad that I based the rest of my life off that one fleeting moment with you. That was literally my reason for living. No biggie.
No biggie.
You need to send him an edible arrangement in the shape of a heart.
I think I'm going to have to hit
some melon cut out with I'm sorry.
Well, Apex, yeah, those Joes are the best, man. I got a few of them. I got with the scar. I mean, imagine having a G.I. Joe scar.
And then remember when they changed them because America was all anti-war.
Right, and then
it was the gas crisis.
Yeah.
With that winner, Jimmy Carter.
Well, that's what killed the line.
Well, they went sci-fi. Then it was like they went in space, and then they were like scuba, and they were wearing like.
Well, that's cool.
Suits.
No, well, actually, the way the history of it was in 1966 when they first came out was that it was all military stuff. Yeah. Then, of course, Vietnam happened, and then it still stayed, because Vietnam wasn't, I guess, as unpopular as everyone makes it think now. Like half the country or more than half the country felt it was the right thing to do, and then just as the war kept dragging on, then of course the personal opinion changed. So then around 71 or so, Bullet Man, Mike Powers, Apex, absolutely. So they then they went to the action team, G.I. Joe action team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when we were going underwater fighting the big squid and all that stuff.
Yep.
The Mummy's Tomb.
Yeah.
Yes. And then they had Mike Powers. And Mike Powers came out when the $6 Million Man came out, and Mike Powers beat the Steve Austin action figure to the stand, to the shelves. Yeah. And the Mike Powers was far superior to the Steve Austin official toy anyway.
You're missing one thing though, Lee Majors, buddy.
Dude, Lee Majors was like my first hero.
His first.
Oh yeah, God, yeah. Well, my father died when I was 5 years old, so I didn't have a father. So I think I was in second grade when the $6 Million Man first came out. I was in the Steve Austin fan club and everything like that, and I've yet to meet Lee Majors.
I hate to say this, is he still around? Because you literally hear nothing about Lee Majors.
He does a few cons. Some buddies of mine, like Rock and Damo, two of my pals, that they've hung out with him.
Oh, that's wicked,
dude. That's what we have to do. We have to start to coordinate.
I know, this is more content.
Lee Majors.
More content.
Dragon Con for sure. We'll all get together, man. It's gonna be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You smoke cigars?
I do not, sir, but I drink beer.
All right. Will you smoke a cigar?
No.
All right. Scala.
So I will not.
To us to do it.
It's okay.
I'm not doing it then. If Jay's not doing it, I'm not doing it.
We can have a couple of beers.
Scala, everyone's doing it. Jay's weird. Don't but everyone else is doing it. Jay's not cool. All the cool kids are doing it.
If everyone else is doing it, maybe I should. Maybe.
Yeah. See.
Yeah, maybe. So, Jay, I've got a Transformers thing that I'm working on. If you'd like to join on that one as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. What do you got going on?
Can't say too much yet.
Sure.
I don't have confirmations, but there have been emails going back.
Now everyone's going to be pissed off at you for that one.
Okay, I got to give a little
another NDA moment of this show.
That, and I may have a Batman the Animated Series thing in the works.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
I have an original cell from that.
So do I. I actually have an original piece right here. For the animators, it's the
turnaround.
Yep, character turnaround.
I actually bought a cowl from the original Batman movie.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did, and it was in a mall in Connecticut.
Yeah,
it was Catwoman's mask too, and it was only like $600. And
your mom, you and your freaking sister was like, "There's a rip in the nose," and told your mom you couldn't freaking buy it, and it taunts you for freaking ever. And it's stupid.
Nerd alert. Hey, I like just a kid in Brooklyn saying, "Let's kidnap Lee Majors."
Yeah, I mean, let's kidnap him and make him watch Fall Guy reruns, or better yet, let's crowdfund Fall Guy: The Return.
Wow.
Oh, there you go.
Look at that.
Nice.
Fantastic.
He's on it. Make it happen.
With Heather Thomas. Oh my God! Remember that opening? Remember the credits, and she just opens a curtain. She's in that red bikini. Oh, you guys too young for that?
No, I watched it.
Oh, you gotta look. You could just. I'm sure you could YouTube the Fall Guy opening.
Yeah.
Scala, can you run that?
Let me head over to the screen here.
Can you head over to the screen and play
We
that?
could even get Shatner and do like a TJ Hooker crossover.
Oh my
kind
God!
of thing.
Oh no, Heather Thomas was on. Yeah, Heather Thomas was on Fall Guy, right?
I don't remember.
Yes, Heather Locklear was TJ Hooker. Heather Thomas is Fall Guy. Heather Thomas was a lot hotter than Heather Locklear. And they were both hot.
They're
Which
both
Fall?
okay.
It's a Fall Guy opening. What was it?
Fall Guy opening. Give it full screen too. See, TMC Comics gets it. He gets it. TMC Comics.
Well, if
Play
I'm
that.
on naughty sites.
Heather Thomas. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Heather Apex gets it. Heather Thomas is hotter than Heather Locklear.
I can't picture her for some reason.
Oh my God, you will if Blevins. I mean, if Scala gets his.
Heather Locklear, because she was married to Tommy Lee for a while. I'm a huge.
I was Heather Locklear, and I met Tommy Lee, and I had to. I worked at the Palladium.
What is going on here?
So I had to take care of them.
Well,
like
weird.
Tommy Lee and Nikki Sixx came in, and it was my job to make sure that they were hydrated, continually hydrated. And Nikki Sixx was Tommy Lee was the coolest guy in the world.
Yeah,
unbelievably cool. And I'm like, dude, I saw you guys October 13th, 1985. Are we playing it yet? Oh, there it is. Oh, it's a blue bikini. Sorry.
Your business idea needs a
Make that
website.
bigger?
Go to Wix.com. What are you waiting for? Today's the day.
Yes, make it bigger. There you go. All right, well, let's watch this. Can you hear us?
Well, I'm not. What's that?
Play it back and freeze frame it, not the helicopter. We're all men here. Bam. Look at that.
There you go. You know what? I don't remember that song. Is that bad? I remember the show.
No, the song
I don't
bad.
remember.
I didn't remember the show, and now I remember the show and the song.
Oh.
And the bikini.
Yeah, I used to get girls like that in high school.
That's great. That's great.
All right, fellas. I'm gonna go check to see if that car. I told Scala. So we have like a stalker or something parking across the street from us, and we got the license plate. And I tried to confront the person, and my wife was screaming at me not to, but I found out where they lived, and then I went and I drove by, and I.
Yes, it is Blevins.
Is this live? Yes, Blevins. It's live. It's live.
This is great. This is great stuff here.
Yeah, and but I found out where they lived, so I'm gonna take them here.
Well, hey, be careful. Don't be like Batman. You be careful.
I want to be like Batman,
I know you do.
or like I don't know, one of the mystery men.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, G.I. Joe.
Just walk up to the car with like just a bathrobe on
and my drink, my cocktail.
in your cocktail.
I can be like doing a Sammy Davis impression, you know.
Yeah.
Can I help you?
Can I help you, cat? Oh, yeah.
Did you say cat?
I know Larry Hama. You better back up, man.
That's right. Larry Hama. Oh, it could be like Edward G. Roberts. Say. We help you, yeah. All right, you guys are awesome. This was great, Jay. You're always great, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Dragon Con. We're looking forward to having you back on.
Oh, that's great. I can't wait.
We're expanding our horizons to include action figures and toys and things like that too. So
you guys gotta check out Jay's channel though too.
Yes.
Where do you film? Do you go to? Is that at your house or do you go somewhere to film that?
So let me be clear. First of all, I do documentaries. The YouTube stuff is just my own stuff, just for a hobby. But it's just Jay Bartlett on YouTube. It's pretty easy to find. My studio's in my house here. It's just in
your house.
I have a bunch of different toy rooms, and that's one of them where I shoot. So I do all the shooting and editing, all that myself. It's a learning process. I'm usually just the guy in front of the camera, but I'm starting to learn all the editing and stuff. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, check it out if you guys like toys and Star Wars and such.
Every time I put it in, this other Jay Bartlett comes up.
Is it the guitar guy?
I don't know. He looks like he'd be friends with Billy.
There's a Jay Bartlett
guy that messes up the songs and screens and smashes the guitar, and he's
more popular than me, man. I'm trying.
I just had to go into my subs because I'm a subscriber, and boom, there we go.
There you go.
You got your latest video up here. Now you haven't been up too long, right? A couple months.
I started this in December. Yeah,
so you've only been a few months.
Yeah.
So you got your latest Prime. I watched that one. That was good.
Yeah.
But you guys should check it out. Head over to Jay's channel. I'm gonna actually put the link in the chat for the 44 people that are still watching.
And thank you guys for sticking around with us. Heather Thomas was worth it, wasn't she?
She was, and bringing me back to what was that, 84, 85?
Probably 85, 86, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe 84, 80. Man, maybe 85. I'm going with 85.
Yeah, no, it was great.
So anyway, so tell my story about Tommy Lee. So Tommy Lee was there with Nikki Sixx. Nikki Sixx is blown out of his mind at the Palladium, and they had two smoking hot blondes with him, and neither of them were Heather Locklear.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean those guys, like the crew guys and the guys in Kiss, man, like they've had one hell of a life. You know what I mean? Like they've lived. So
yeah, I don't believe Gene Simmons. I think he's a liar.
Yeah,
that serpentine lizard-faced schmuck. I don't think he had all them women. I think he lies.
You think?
Yeah, I think he lies.
It's those platform boots, dude. You should put them on. You'll see.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe we could be Kiss, Scala, and Dragon Con.
Maybe.
Woo!
His hair looks really fragile.
Oh my God! He's got like a plastic, twiggy afro thing on his head, like the.
So like a thing you'd use to break off to like throw into like a fire pit to start the fire.
If I'm not mistaken, Gene actually went bald in the 80s, so that's all replacement.
I think it's just a wig he wears. I don't even think it's awful.
It might be. Yeah.
He likes comics.
I met him in '94. He hit on Debbie when we were young at San Diego, and he's like, "Who are you? What are you doing?" I got stories. I'll tell you.
Yeah,
we'll see for another show. People hate.
People we hate.
I'm sorry I brought him up, man. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Thanks a lot.
Someone's not sleeping tonight.
All right, guys, I gotta go. Jay, you're
all right, Billy.
Scala, you are fantastic.
Yes.
Thanks, boys.
Thank you for all the great questions. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for the super chats.
Yes.
And I take my leave from you, gentlemen.
All right. Yeah. Everyone have a great night. Sub to Jay's channel. The link is in the chat. And we'll see you Tuesday next week. All right, everyone have a great night.
Right? Monday?
Maybe Monday.
Maybe Monday
and Tuesday and Thursday.
Nice.
All right, everyone.
Cheers, boys. Have a good night.
Cheers.
Good night.
Have a good one.
Hey guys, thanks again for tuning into Crowdfunding Comics. We look forward to hanging out with all of our crowdfunding fans every time we go live. And don't forget to click the link below and subscribe to our channel. And there's a little bell. You may want to hit that too. This way you get all the great notifications when we go live and when we upload some awesome content. You want to follow us? Sure, go right ahead at Twitter at CrowdFundComics with an X, Instagram, Crowdfunding Comics, and Facebook at Crowdfunding Comics. Till next time, crowdfunding fans, we'll see you soon.